The tree shrews are small mammals native to the tropical forests of South and Southeast Asia. They were moved from the order Insectivora into the order Primates because of certain internal similarities to primates, for example, similarities in the brain anatomy, and classified as a primitive prosimian. However, they were soon split from the primates and moved into their own clade. Taxonomists continue to refine the tree shrew's relations to primates and to other closely related clades. Large tree shrews are the most predominantly terrestrial of all tree shrew species. They are usually on the forest floor, the primary location for their foraging, although they spend part of their time in trees. They contribute to maintenance of their lowland rainforest ecosystem by dispersing seeds. Pintail tree shrews studied in Malaysia spent several hours per night consuming naturally fermented nectar of the burdam palm. This nectar contains one of the highest alcohol concentrations of all natural foods. The pintail tree shrews did not show any signs of intoxication, although they frequently consumed large amounts of this nectar, equivalent of 10-12 glasses of wine adjusted to body weight with an alcohol content up to 4%. Measurements of a biomarker of alcohol dehydrogenase suggest that they may be metabolizing it by a pathway that is not used as heavily by humans. Their ability to ingest high amounts of alcohol is hypothesized to have been an evolutionary adaptation. How pintail tree shrews benefit from this alcohol ingestion or what consequences of consistent high blood alcohol content might factor into their physiology is unclear. Dermopters are arboreal gliding mammals closely related to primates. Of all the gliding mammals, they have the most perfected adaptation for flight. They have a large membrane of skin that extends between their paired limbs and gives them the ability to glide significant distances between trees. This gliding membrane, or patagium, runs from the shoulder blades to the forepaws, from the tip of the rearmost fingers to the tip of the toes, and from the hind legs to the tip of the tail. Although it is sometimes called flying lemur, the Malayan colugo cannot fly but glides among trees and is strictly arboreal. It is active at night, and feeds on soft plant parts such as young leaves, shoots, flowers, and fruits. It is a forest-dependent species. Gliding usually occurs in open areas or high in the canopy, especially in dense tropical rainforest. It needs a certain distance to glide and to land to avoid injury. The highest landing forces are experienced after short glides. Longer glides lead to softer landings, due to its ability to break its glide aerodynamically. The ability to glide increases a colugo's access to scattered food resources in the rainforest, without increasing exposure to terrestrial or arboreal predators. It has been observed to lick tree bark of selected tree species to obtain water, nutrients, salts and minerals. After a 60-day gestation period, a single offspring is carried on the mother's abdomen held by a large skin membrane. For decades, a few teeth and jaw fragments were the only clues available about a mouse-sized creature called Purgatorius, which lived some 65 million years ago. Now paleontologists have identified ankle bones from the species, and the wide range of motion in the joints suggests that the animal was a nimble tree climber. It lived during the early Paleocene epoch, right after the demise of dinosaurs. By then, plants were beginning to bear fruit. The revelation that the earliest primate climbed trees supports the theory that primates and flowering plants co-evolved in ways that benefited both groups. Plants were starting to produce something that was attractive to primates, as a way of spreading their seeds. And at the same time, primates were becoming more specialized for life in the trees, allowing them to climb out on a branch and collect that fruit. Fossils of Purgatorius have been discovered dating both to the late Cretaceous period and the early Paleocene epoch, a few million years later. Most likely, this mammal's arboreal habits helped rescue it from oblivion, making accessible a new source of food at a time when most non-tree climbing dinosaurs were starving to death on the ground. Plesiadopus is one of the most completely known early primatomorphs, with a significant amount of the skeleton known. The skeletal adaptations are consistent with a largely arboreal lifestyle in the trees. Nearly all of what is known about the anatomy of Plesiadapiforms comes from fragmentary jaws and teeth, so most definitions of Plesiadapiform genera and species are based on dentition. Its dentition shows a functional shift toward grinding and crushing in the cheek teeth as an adaptation towards increasing omnivority and herbivority. The skull of Plesiadopus is relatively broad and flat, with a long snout with rodent-like jaws and teeth and long, gnawing incisors separated by a gap from its molars. Carpolestes had flattened fingernails on its feet but with claws on its fingers. Morphologically it supports Robert Sussman's theory of the coevolution of tropical fruiting angiosperms and early primates where angiosperms provide nectar and fruits in return for dispersing the seed for tropical rainforest plants. It appears to have been a distant relative of the Plesiadapiforms such as Plesiadopus. Typically, they are characterized by 2 large upper posterior premolars and 1 large lower posterior premolar. They weighed about 20 to 150 grams, and were about the size of a mouse. Darwinius lived approximately 47 million years ago based on dating of the fossil site. The only known fossil, called Ida, was discovered in 1983 at the Messel pit, in Germany. Ida had large eye sockets, which suggest she was nocturnal. Nocturnal animals are active mainly at night. The shape of Ida's teeth suggests she was a vegetarian. However, scientists didn't have to guess what she ate. Her last meal fruit was still preserved in her gut millions of years after she ate it. Ida had long fingers and toes and opposable thumbs. Her discoverer has been called the missing link in human evolution, but this term implies a linear and direct progression from one form to another, which oversimplifies the complex branching and divergence of evolutionary pathways. Evolution is better understood as a branching tree with many interconnected branches rather than a linear chain. The term has been misused to create sensationalism and misconceptions about the nature of evolution. It may lead to misunderstandings about the gradual and branching nature of evolutionary changes. Notharctus is a genus of adapiform primate that lived in North America and Europe during the late to Middle Eocene. Its body form is similar to that of modern rats. Its fingers were elongated for clamping onto branches, including the development of a thumb. Its spine is flexible and the animal was about 40 centimeters in length, excluding the long tail. There were at least 4 different Notharctus species. Fossils from at least 7 other potential species have also been discovered. The Sunda slow loris is nocturnal and arboreal, typically occurring in evergreen forests. It prefers rainforests with continuous dense canopies and has an extremely low metabolic rate compared to other mammals of its size. Its diet consists of floral nectar, fruit and arthropods, and will feed on exudates such as gum by licking wounds in trees. Individuals are generally solitary, with one study showing only 8% of its active time was spent near other individuals. It has a monogamous mating system with the offspring living with the parents. The species is polyoestrous, usually giving birth to a single offspring after a gestation period of 192 days. The young disperses between 16 and 27 months, generally when it is sexually mature. The species is listed as endangered. It is threatened with extinction due to a growing demand in the exotic pet trade, and has become one of the most abundant primate species on sale at Indonesian pet markets. Its teeth are often pulled out before being sold as pets, which can result in infection or death. This process makes reintroduction to the wild impossible. The red slender loris differs from its close relative in its frequent use of rapid arboreal locomotion. It forms small social groups, containing adults of both sexes as well as young animals. This species is among the most social of the nocturnal primates. During daylight hours the animals sleep in groups in branch tangles, or curled up on a branch with their heads between their legs. The groups also undertake mutual grooming and play at wrestling. They are primarily insectivorous but also eat bird eggs, berries, leaves and occasionally small vertebrates. They forage, and while doing so, ants may stick to the back of their hands. To maximize protein and nutrient uptake they consume every part of their prey, including the scales and bones. This slender loris is an endangered species. Habitat destruction is a major threat. It is widely trapped and killed for use in supposed remedies for eye diseases and is preyed upon by snakes, dogs and some fish. Other threats include electrocution on live wires, road accidents and capture for the pet trade. To protect itself, the slow loris has also been observed to rub the venom on its fur to chemically defend itself from predators. Galagos have remarkable jumping abilities. According to a study published by the Royal Society, given the body mass of each animal and the fact that the leg muscles amount to about 25% of this, Galagos' jumping muscles should perform 6 to 9 times better than those of a frog. This is thought to be due to elastic energy storage in tendons of the lower leg, allowing far greater jumps than would otherwise be possible for an animal of their size. The mohole bush baby feeds predominantly on insects and gum. The gum is an exudate from acacia trees that oozes out of punctures made by insects. According to some accounts, the name bush baby comes from either the animal's cries or its appearance. Brown greater galago is solitary, living in a home range of a few hectares. However, there is some overlap with other individuals. Males have territories that overlap with a few females and females may have home ranges that overlap, but male territories generally do not overlap. The territory is marked by urine and a scent produced in a gland in the chest. Grooming is a very important part of galago daily life. They often groom themselves before, during, and after rest. Social grooming is done more often by males in the group. Females often reject attempts by males to groom them. Galagos communicate by calling to each other and by marking their paths with urine. By following the scent of urine, they can land on exactly the same branch every time. Each species produces a unique set of loud calls that have different functions. Megalodapus was quite different from any living lemur. Its body was squat and built like that of the modern koala. Its long arms, fingers, feet, and toes were specialized for grasping trees, and its legs were splayed for vertical climbing. The hands and feet were curved and the ankles and wrists did not have the usual stability needed to travel on the ground that most other lemurids have. Its pedal morphology suggests Megalodapus evolved to live in an arboreal environment. It is believed to have been folivorous, using a leaf-cropping foraging method. They were slow-moving, bulky creatures that were diurnal. These features already put them at an evolutionary disadvantage. Megalodapus were more susceptible to predators, newly arrived humans more specifically, forest fires and habitat destruction due to these traits. The ii is the world's largest nocturnal primate. It is characterized by its unusual method of finding food. It taps on trees to find grubs, then gnaws holes in the wood using its forward slanting incisors to create a small hole into which it inserts its narrow middle finger to pull the grubs out. This foraging method is called percussive foraging, and takes up 5 to 41% of foraging time. From an ecological point of view, the ii fills the niche of a woodpecker, as it is capable of penetrating wood to extract the invertebrates within. The complex geometry of ridges on the inner surface of ears helps to sharply focus not only echolocation signals from the tapping of its finger, but also to passively listen for any other sound produced by the prey. The was thought to be extinct in 1933, but was rediscovered in 1957. Recent research shows the is more widespread than was previously thought, but its conservation status was changed to endangered. It is considered evil by local cultures, and is killed as such. The forests of Madagascar are declining in range due to deforestation. Local farmers will kill to protect their crops. However, there is no direct evidence to suggest pose any legitimate threat to crops and therefore are killed based on superstition. Archaeolemur is an extinct genus of subfossil lemurs known from the Holocene epoch of Madagascar. It is one of the most common and well-known of the extinct giant lemurs, as hundreds of its bones have been discovered in fossil deposits across the island. It was larger than any extant lemur, with a body mass of approximately 25 kilograms, and is commonly reconstructed as the most frugivorous and terrestrial of the fossil Malagasy primates. Colloquially known as a monkey lemur, Archaeolemur has often been compared with anthropoids, specifically the Cercopithecines, due to various morphological convergences. The island of Madagascar has been isolated from other landmasses for almost 90 million years, and as a result there are many lineages present there found nowhere else on Earth. Lemurs are one of the island's most famous residents, having arrived from Africa via a rafting event sometime early in the Cenozoic and evolving to fill the ecological niches occupied elsewhere by monkeys and apes. The sloth lemurs resembled modern sloths in a remarkable case of convergent evolution. With long limbs and long hooked fingers and toes, they were adapted for swinging through trees and hanging from branches, feeding on a wide range of plant material such as leaves, fruit and seeds. Archaeoindris was the largest known lemur, and one of the largest primates, similar in size to a modern gorilla. It would have been a slow-moving animal which fed mostly on leaves, and while it was still capable of climbing around in larger trees, it was probably much too bulky for upside-down suspension like its smaller relatives, and would likely have had to regularly traverse the ground to reach new feeding sites. It seems to have been a fairly rare member of the ecosystem, living only in the central highlands, and the last known remains date to just over 2,000 years ago, around the same time that humans first reached that area of the island. Sadly, a combination of factors such as the giant lemur's slow reproductive rate, habitat loss and hunting pressure was too much for their population to recover from all at once, and they probably went extinct very soon after that date. The arboreal lifestyle of the Milne-Edwards's sifaka demands high coordination, a well-developed grip, and considerable acrobatics. This lemur moves by vertical clinging and leaping, meaning it maintains an upright position, leaping from tree trunk to tree trunk and moving along branches. Its behavior and social organization is particularly well studied. It is arboreal, diurnal, territorial and group-forming. Females are dominant over males, typical of lemurs but extremely rare in all other primates. Verreaux's sifaka lives in Madagascar and can be found in a variety of habitats from rainforest to dry deciduous forests of western Madagascar and the spiny thickets of the south. Its fur is thick and silky and generally white with brown on the sides, top of the head, and on the arms. Like all sifak, it has a long tail that it uses as a balance when leaping from tree to tree. However, its body is so highly adapted to an arboreal existence, on the ground its only means of locomotion is hopping. It has been discovered that sifaka dyads often engage in post-conflict reunions after aggressive episodes. Reconciliation occurs more frequently when food is not involved and for low-intensity aggressions. In this species, play behavior persists into adulthood, where it is used, especially by stranger males during the mating period, as an ice-breaking mechanism to reduce xenophobia. About 30% of infants are lost to predation by the fossa and a smaller number to raptors. The small-toothed sportive lemur lives in dense rainforest in southeastern Madagascar. Some of its teeth are smaller than those in other sportive lemurs. It is relatively large for a sportive lemur, and is difficult to visually distinguish from the weasel sportive lemur. It is nocturnal, sleeping in concealed tangles of vegetation as well as tree holes. It has been classified as endangered in 2014, on the basis of a small, fragmented and shrinking range, as well as a declining population. Its primary threats are habitat loss to /urban agriculture and hunting. The weasel sportive lemur is a species of lemur native to northeastern Madagascar. Its habitat includes rainforests and tropical rainforests. Its dorsal side is a reddish-brown color, and grayish-brown ventrally. Individuals weigh from 800 to 1200 grams. It is predominantly a leaf eater, although it supplements its diet with fruits and flowers. It is an arboreal species, and travels through the trees by leaping. As with other leaping primates, it has stereoscopic vision that enables it to determine distances precisely. Groups consist solely of a mother and its offspring. The males are solitary, and are very territorial. Like some other lemurs, they are nocturnal. Paca lemur is an extinct, giant lemur most closely related to the ruffed lemurs of genus Vegetation. It specialized in eating fruit, and was therefore an important seed disperser, possibly for tree species with seeds too large for even ruffed lemurs to swallow. In the spiny thickets of southwestern Madagascar, they were also likely to have dispersed seeds evolved to attach to fur and be carried away. Unlike ruffed lemurs, the fore and hind limbs of Paca lemur were nearly the same length, and therefore it was likely to be a slow, deliberate climber. However, both used hind limb suspension to reach fruit on small branches below them. Habitat loss, forest fragmentation, and bush-meat hunting are thought to have been the reasons for its disappearance. The black and white ruffed lemur is an endangered species of ruffed lemur. Despite having a larger range than the red ruffed lemur, it has a much smaller population that is spread out, living in lower population densities and reproductively isolated. They are the largest extant members of the family Lemuridae. They are arboreal, spending most of their time in the high canopy of the seasonal rainforests on the eastern side of the island. They are also diurnal, active exclusively in daylight hours. Quadrupedal locomotion is preferred in the trees and on the ground, and suspensory behavior is seen during feeding. As the most frugivorous of lemurs, the diet consists mainly of fruit, although nectar and flowers are also favored, followed by leaves and some seeds. It has a complex social structure and is known for its loud, raucous calls. It is unusual in that it exhibits several reproductive traits typically found in small, nocturnal lemurs, such as a short gestation period, large litters and rapid maturation. The red-bellied lemur is a medium-sized Strepsirrhini primate with a luxuriant chestnut-brown coat. This lemur is endemic to eastern Madagascan rainforests and is distinguished by patches of white skin below the eyes, giving rise to a teardrop effect, particularly conspicuous in the male. The species, first identified in 1850, exhibits diurnal behavior and marked sexual dimorphism. The red-bellied lemur has been studied extensively since the mid-80s. It aggregates in monogamous groups ranging from 2 to 10 individuals. It is one of the few lemurs to be recognized as cathemeral, having both diurnal and nocturnal activity patterns. Groups are typically cohesive as they move within their home range, foraging on over 30 species of plants. Considered by some to be a frugivore, it also feeds on leaves, nectar and flowers of many plant species. This lemur is believed to be a useful and efficient seed disperser. The ring-tailed lemur is the most internationally recognized lemur species, owing to its long, black and white, ringed tail. It is omnivorous, as well as the most adapted to living terrestrially of the extant lemurs. It is highly social, living in groups of up to 30 individuals. It is also a female-dominant species, a commonality among lemurs. To keep warm and reaffirm social bonds, groups will huddle together. Mutual grooming is another vital aspect of lemur socialization, reaffirming social and familial connections, while also helping rid each other of any potential insects. This species relies strongly on their sense of smell, and territorial marking, with scent glands, provides communication signals throughout a group's home range. As one of the most vocal primates, it uses numerous vocalizations, including calling for group cohesion and predator alarm calls. Despite adapting to and breeding easily under captive care, and being the most popular species of lemur in zoos worldwide, with more than 2,000 captive-raised individuals, the wild population of ring-tailed lemur is listed as endangered, due to habitat destruction, local hunting for bush meat and the exotic pet trade.